My lords, today we shall address in detail the strongest of the 5 Shroud gods, the end of the cycle. This is the being that we believed coerced the mighty Zeroni, and we assume several other civilizations throughout our galaxy's history. The end of the cycle is by far the most elusive of the 5 gods, and clearly the most dangerous. The power it can bestow upon a civilization is apocalyptically wonderful, but the price is absolute. Unlike the other 4 gods who appear quite content to give out their gifts and feed at a whim, the end of the cycle gives everything immediately, providing fantastic boons to whoever is stupid enough to pact with it. The price comes all at once, at the precise date the contract is deemed to end. We've acquired documentation covering a long-dead empire who call themselves the Marish Coalition. They were once a xenophilic, spiritualistic empire, although this would all change later on. I shall detail their records from when they first learned to touch the Shroud and began to display psionic tendencies. We first learned of the empire during our dig site on Tau Ceti 3, led by Dr. A. Grant. The dig site was designated Plentiful Fossils. Tau Ceti 3 appears to be a standard, habitable planet, but on closer inspection our research team has spotted large deposits of fossils in seemingly well-preserved conditions. Interestingly, large clusters contain multiple specimens on the same layer, indicating that they either died at the same time or were placed there intentionally. Examination of these remains gives us the opportunity to better understand the evolutionary processes of the species inhabiting the planet. We scanned the surface and found few promising deposits. They were filled with the remains of a different species. Some resembled those still living on the surface, while others were like nothing we had ever seen before. Although the work was hard and the wildlife was agitated by our presence, our scientists had already made remarkable discoveries and managed to reconstruct some of the extinct species. This in turn sparked a dispute amongst the research team. While some wanted to display the species in expeditions, others preferred to study the material as it was, and as such, I ordered that we should continue to study the fossils further. This dig site, however, was almost exhausted, and we would have to find another. We've done extensive research to determine the relationship of the fossil species to the current biosphere, and it turns out that some of them belong to the same genus, having many similarities. Further study should bring us more answers. Exhausting the first dig site, we decided to move on to a remote place in search of more material for research. We found a good enough spot, a cave that served as a home for some intelligent extinct species. Careful probing and examination revealed something quite unusual. Whatever lived in this cave used an ingenious dye that revealed itself when exposed to heat and light. We identified 2 types of painting. One told the story of the past, and the other portrayed daily life. Unfortunately, we disrupted the delicate ecosystem that preserved the drawings. The resulting chain reaction, combined with the age of the dye, caused it to fade and disappear on short notice. The team must decide which one was worth saving, and we ultimately decided to attempt to preserve the history. We captured the drawings related to the past and gained insight into this species' history. It appeared that these cave dwellers came into contact with an advanced civilization that somewhat influenced their looks and development. Given the depictions of the creatures, we assume that this species was prone to rapid genetic mutation, and their generations varied greatly in appearance. The team continued on until we finally reached the end of the cave. We entered something that resembled an old abandoned bunker, built deep underground, but it didn't look like anything we had found here before. We assumed that the alien visitors set up a research lab, and given the dilapidated tanks, various bones, and fossils lying around, they were studying these species just as we were, only they had the opportunity to conduct the research when the specimens were still alive. We immediately jumped to work trying to gather any useful information we could from the remaining site. It would appear that thousands of years ago, an advanced civilization found the specimens living here to be an interesting study. They were fascinated by the diverse biosphere and decided to tinker with it. The old databanks contain a basic genetic composition of the species and how they might have developed in the past and future. and it quite clearly shows what happens next. The researchers manipulated and accelerated the evolution of the species that would come to be called the Marish Coalition, and endowed them with latent psionic abilities, before leaving, and we assume observing. This race of advanced aliens could surely not have known what would happen next. The next documents we have relate to the now advanced and spacefaring empire known as the Marish Coalition. Several hundred years have passed since their rapid evolution, and they now occupied several planets and were apparently learning of the Shroud and beginning to flex their psionic capabilities. We've managed to acquire the following extracts detailing the events. The Shroud. It is unbelievably strange and unsettling, but also incredibly familiar. Our people have forever seen this place in their dreams, though we did not know it at the time. We linger now at the precipice of this realm, not far from the empty void of the in-between that serves as the boundary between here and normal space, or at least what we call the real world. To venture deeper into the Shroud will require a great effort on the part of our telepaths, as well as a large amount of energy. We must not dally. Even now, we're being watched. If we are to communicate with the denizens of the psychic realm known as the Shroud, we will have to unleash an incredible amount of psionic energy. Preparations have been made for a huge seance, involving our most powerful psychics in the newly established conclave of telepaths on the homeworld of Mitra. For several days, our psionics were locked in a hypnotic trance, nestled away inside the conclave of telepaths, and just as we were beginning to lose hope, a link was formed and locked in place. While we have yet to actually pierce the veil, we can feel it getting thinner and thinner under the pressure of our combined minds. Yet on the other side, our efforts to enter the Shroud have not gone unnoticed. Something watches us. Its presence radiates eldritch power and unfathomable purpose. It seeps through the cracks of our psyche. It barely notices us. It watches us like we would examine condensation through a porthole. It might break us apart if we reached its inscrutable mind. Despite this risk, we attempt to commune with it, whatever it is. We believe now that we will be able to access the Shroud at a whim. To make any kind of meaningful foray into this realm and meet the beings that dwell here, we will likely have to make use of special psionic emitters to extend our psychic reach. We believe that this will consume a tremendous amount of energy. We must expand our economic production to support such an undertaking. Operations continue. We have found a tiny space within the Shroud that has a concentration of psionic energy that is of a magnitude that we have never seen before. Any psionic that managed to successfully tap into this pocket of raw energy will become immensely powerful. But there is only enough for a single individual, and the risks involved are immense. There are only a few individuals in the entire Marish Coalition that possess the psionic strength needed to tap into this energy pocket. Our Minister of State, Tiana, attempted it. Several hours passed in what felt like minutes, and finally, it was done. The entire Shroud shuddered at the psionic energy being drained as its power transferred into Tiana. Only a handful of individuals in the history of the entire galaxy have been gifted with the strength of this magnitude. May the spirits have mercy on our souls. She has become the chosen one. We have, after many weeks of searching, finally found the presence that was waiting for us. It calls itself the end of the cycle, and it apparently has always been waiting for us. Our telepaths suddenly speak up in unison, a dozen voices in a perfected chorus. It is not yet your time, but it could be. Nothing more was said, but it was clear a bargain had been offered. We know that power, knowledge, and wealth beyond measure are ours for the taking, if we only bring forth the end. Despite the obvious risks, a covenant was made. We formed a bond with the end of the cycle, and as we took its bargain, a mere 2 words were spoken. 50 years. Then silence. We will now have to contemplate the future consequences of what we have brought upon ourselves. May the spirits have mercy on our souls. Despite our potential misgivings, the following immediately occurred. Resources from stations and jobs doubled in output overnight. Our ability to construct and maintain a navy also doubled. Our ability to maintain starbases has increased tenfold. And finally, envoys are reporting political power projection like we have never seen before. It appears our influence on the galaxy has drastically increased. For 50 years, the Marish Coalition experienced explosive growth. They quickly became an overwhelming force across the galaxy. All bowed before the might of their navy. Now fully psionic and led by the Chosen One, they were not to be opposed. But those 50 years passed quickly, and the Marish became arrogant. They believed that this overwhelming power was theirs by right, something earned rather than gifted, and they were about to find out that which is given can just as easily be taken away. Their final log reads, "Our time is up. For 50 years we have benefited from the immense power given to us by the end of the cycle. We knew that there would be a price to pay, but we thought it might be one that we could bear, or that we could find some way out of the contract to avoid paying it. It was not, and we could not. The price that we have paid is everything, in an instant. So fast there was no time to react, let alone respond. The entire coalition was gone. Whether populous city worlds or once thriving colonies, there is now only death. Where once mighty fleets crossed the void, there was only ghosts and debris, all devoured by the end of the cycle. All that remains of our empire is a group of exiles, led by Taxanaka, a powerful psionic who saw the end coming and led a small part of our population into hiding on a world not marked by the end and unnoticed by the Shroud. As if having our empire destroyed overnight wasn't bad enough, a colossal Shroud entity has manifested itself in the space above Mitra. It's been made immensely powerful by its consumption of the consciousness of our people. And now it roams the galaxy, seeking prey. May our children forgive us." Thanks for watching, folks. If you want to hear more about the Shroud, then please click the video on screen now.